thank again for Naoya and Iko to present their works, and especially Naoya is kind of, presenting the overall picture of the Humanitext project and then the vision for the future, especially on the co-creation of knowledge with our users, right? And then Iko is presenting a very ambitious plan for kind of like making the project and an application as an encyclopedia for the Asian world. Then I would like to present my ongoing work on rethinking reference indexes for AI-driven epigraphic studies. So here I said I, not we, because the epigraphy is not officially the part of the Humanitext project, but it's more like my own research project. This research is being conducted within the Humanitext project and focusing on how we can better represent and connect references to inscriptions in scholarly publications. By extracting and then structuring these references, we aim to create richer knowledge base that can support both human researchers and an AI system. So we're gonna move on to the next slide, but I think I have to first apologize that my slide was so old-fashioned because I was crazy enough to coming up with the idea that I'm not using AI to make actually the slide, which is quite rare in this period, I think. So the background, our long-term goal as a Humanitext project is to construct a knowledge base from which information can be extracted from multiple perspectives so that we can help users access to the knowledge more accurately and in greater depth through our system. In the Humanitext project, we already developed several applications which cover different types of related information. As already presented by previous presenters, Humanitext Antiqua for text itself, to provide detailed prospective information, and the Humanitext Antiqua for text itself, the geo for authors and geospatial features, and the reader for user, researcher, and their accumulated knowledge. But how about scholarly publications? Books, articles, and various arguments going on there have not yet been integrated to the system at all. So one of our main challenges is to develop a linking system between primary and secondary sources. In previous work, we proposed the Humanitext schema, which was designed to connect specific passages in the Asian text with later commentaries called Scholia. In this project, we would like to expand that. In this study, we would like to expand the framework. In particular, it is necessary to include research publications and their bibliometric features, as well as enriching the semantics between text and its references in such publications. Considering this, what we have to do is to develop difference indexes. Our aim here is not only to record that a reference exists between text and publication, but also to capture its meaning and the function within scholarly discourse. Several existing attempts provide useful foundation for this work. Of course, SciDoc CRM offers basic vocabularies for representing the relationship between object and then documents. However, it mainly records the existence of connections and provide only limited information about their meaning. Saito, on the other hand, focuses on the scholarly citations and then allows us to describe relationships such as support, criticism, or the confirmation. However, as long as main focus of this ontology is more on the relationship between secondary sources and not on primary-secondary relations, it is far from being enough for the Humanitext for the humanities research. HUCI, sorry, I don't know the exact pronunciation of this project, but HUCI goes further by emphasizing the importance of context. It argues that humanities citations are often ambiguous and that understanding the surrounding context is essential for interpreting them correctly. While the points made by HUCI have pretty much in common with our direction, it remains merely a suggestion. This means while these approaches provide valuable insights, they do not yet fully address our needs. To explore these questions, I focus on epigraphy in this study. Why? Because as a Roman historian by training, inscriptions are among my primary research materials, and then I know relatively well what kind of information is needed to study them. Furthermore, inscription will soon be integrated into the Humanitext project, making them an ideal case study for developing and then testing new methods for reference extraction and then semantic indexing. For this experiment, I used 3 of the open edition articles dealing with Roman North Africa. These publications are available in machine-readable formats and are relatively well structured. More importantly, inscriptions play a central role in the selected articles. And using GPT-OS S120 billion, I extracted references to inscriptions as well as information about the nature of these references. The objective was not simply to identify citations, but also to understand how inscriptions are being used within scholarly arguments. The references found in scholarly publications are highly diverse. Some of them are in the body text, like this on the left side, as shown in this example. And summarizing the contents of an inscription and discussing the historical information that can be derived from them. So this is one type of the reference or the citation. On the other hand, many of the references are actually in footnotes. This example shows the situation that the reference is in a footnote, mainly providing textual information such as transcription or translation. And still, others refer to visual aspect. It's providing textual information. And still others refers to visual aspects of inscriptions by presenting photographs or the drawing of the pictures, of the objects, This diversity suggests that a simple citation link is not sufficient. Instead, we need a model capable of representing different types of relationships between publication and inscriptions. This is the model I designed to represent such referential relations. At the center locates the class mention, a single specific mention of an inscription in a scholarly text. Each mention carries its own attributes: the row difference, normalized form, the location type, the start and then end paragraphs, and a note number. From that center, the relations fan out. A mention refers to an inscription, which is keyed by its EDCS identifier. EDCS is a major database for Latin inscription. Mention also has a relation to a relation assertion, whose body text is typed against a schema of 11 relation types. I'll explain it later. And it points into the document structure, into body paragraphs and into footnotes, and ultimately up to the source book section. Mentions of the same inscriptions are linked to one another by coincided with. So everything in our model hangs off this one anchor, a mention. So now I'm going to explain this relation schema. What types of relations between the inscription and the publication? These are the relation categories that we defined. This is by no means a final version of our conceptualization, but represent very basic semantics of epigraphic references. Key point here is at the bottom. This is multi-level. A single reference in a scholarly text can, and usually does, carry several of these categories at once. Based on this definition, here is how we actually extract the references, 3 stages, all writing into one canonical file. Stage 1, reference extraction. A rule-based path with regular expressions over the corpus sigla, such as CIL, or AE, or IL Tunisia, IL Africa, or something like that, plus and their numbers. So each inscription's numbers in these collections. This pulls out the raw references and the surrounding fields. And stage 2, semantic classification. A local large language model, GPT-OSS 120 billion, does a multi-level classification of how each reference is being used, constrained to the enumeration of categories from the previous slide, and it records the evidence for each. And the last stage, EDCS linking. So in here, normalized key matching against the EDCS epigraphic database. So each mention is tied to a real inscription record. All 3 stages append in place into a single canonical file. Inscription mentions.json, read and written automatically. So bibliography is resolved separately through closed-ref and an open edition adapters, and the output come out as JSON, CSV, and an RDF Turtle ontology. So here is the prompt. Sorry, it's so small, I think. And here are the stats of the extracted data. Among our 3 targeted articles, we have 559 epigraphic references in total, over 489 distinct inscriptions. Looking at the frequency, transcription is most often provided along with corpus identification or content description. In contrast, providing image representation is quite rare. So this is the knowledge graph I actually constructed. So the center in the red node is a book, and it has 2 chapters, different chapters. So here's a chapter. And in chapter, there are several mentions of inscriptions like this. And if you select one of them, it will go deep into the single mention. And the type was mentioned, so it just mentioned the number of inscriptions in this part. Yeah, and this is a textual body, so it actually have text data. And of course, it refers to some specific inscriptions. In here, IL Africa. So this is the knowledge graph I actually created. So we should be now coming back to our initial motivation, which is constructing an AI research platform on our texts. We now have bibliographic context around the epigraphic text. So how can we use them? For this question, I developed a graph-lag-based search system fusing two contexts into one prompt, using two contexts into one prompt. On the left, vector retrieval, we query a Pinecone vector database, embedding the query, taking the top K, and then filtering by the inscription's EDCS ID. Tuple, the unstructured epigraphic text itself, and then its metadata. On the right, the knowledge graph, a Sparkle query over our endpoint, following the refers to relation, retrieves the structured scholarly references, such as author, title, pages, relation type, as targeted citation with open edition deep links. Both streams converge into a merged prompt. The inscription context and modern scholarly references section with the tagged words. That prompt goes to the LLM, which returns a grounded answer that cites both the contents of inscriptions and then the scholarship. The key idea here, the bottom left, unstructured similarity search and then structured graph query are fused into one grounded context. So here is a demo, but I think I can show you the real one. So yeah, this is the search system that I developed, and if you this is not only for the scholarship, but it has also the function of semantic search for inscriptions. So it's kind of like a different project, but I am trying to extract information from inscription with using LLM. For example, like what kind of person mentioned in the inscriptions and what kind of administration they have, and what kind of the relationship, like familial or the social relationship they have, and what kind of benefactions they actually offer to their city. These kind of information, I am trying to extract them with AI and make it possible to search based on such kind of semantic information. But I skipped that here, just give some keyword. So if I searched inscription with keyword, I took again, it's a part of the city name. We have 21 inscriptions here on the single place. And if you choose inscriptions, for example, like this one, of course it offers the detailed information for this inscription, such as the fine spot, province, or the data, literature, this kind of basic metadata, and the text itself. But the important point is here, the literature. So we now have the scholarly research papers behind that inscription. So we have two different kind of the articles here. Actually, it's a different chapters of the single book, but anyway. We have two articles here, and we can see what kind of relationship between them. So this is a transcription of this inscription, this is a translation, and then the other article, they have the content description and a bit detailed analysis here. And you can, of course, jump to the original articles like this. So you can just check, to analyze this inscription, what kind of the scholarly works you have to refer to. Right? And of course, you can just choose. I just want a transcription of this inscription. So I just want a translation of this inscription provided by the previous researchers. And we have a lag, retrieval augmented generation function here. if you search for this specific inscriptions and then you click include related scholarly literature and analysis, then you can include all these scholarly works in your generation. So for example, this is a kind of stupid question, but so what are the scholarly topics concerning these inscriptions? And it gives an answer. So it seems that there are several topics concerning these inscriptions, and each topic has a reference to the original article. So you have to check, oh, this topic comes from this specific article, and who's arguing, who argues about, who argues on that inscriptions. And of course, you can just ask for translation of this inscription. So yeah, this is a search system that I developed, and I should go back to my slide. Okay, so this is pretty much what I've done so far, but I think several challenges remain. First, many publications are available only as PDF or even as printed materials, which makes large-scale data extraction difficult. Second, referencing formats vary significantly across publications, making automatic extraction challenging. Now we're working on the open edition articles, which is quite consistent, so it's fine. But if we kind of expand the scope of our extraction, then that's going to be a problem. Finally, evaluation is not straightforward. Annotating reference categories requires expert judgment, and assessing AI-generated results remains a difficult methodological problem. Despite these challenges, I believe that the reference indexing has great potential for improving the integration of primary and then secondary sources, and for supporting future AI-assisted humanities research. And it's going to be applied to somehow to the Humanitext project itself. So the materials other than the inscription, epigraphy. I think that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much.